and you and I are going to talk about a new dynamic today because you and I were the only ones talking about it in 2020.
About what?
It is a great, well, I'm reading all these reports, and I just did a Google search just about an hour ago about how many folks are, quote, quitting their jobs. Okay. And the number that I got in September, it was reported that 4.4 million folks left their jobs.
Right.
Okay. So, who knows why they left the jobs unless you ask the person themselves. But you and I both know that many of those folks are going to be starting businesses.
They have. The number of business startups is happening.
I was talking in conceptual terms.
And the numbers are impressive.
Wow, and you had the farsightedness to come out with a book that is the best startup book I have ever seen in my life, because
it doesn't sell. It's just not selling.
Well, but we gotta market it. We gotta. The reason being, you asked about 250 questions.
Yeah, I know.
And if the individual cannot personally answer at least 90% of those questions, they should not be starting a business.
Yeah.
Right?
Or they should be getting help.
Or getting help, for sure. Okay, so we're gonna explore that a little bit, but my YouTube is all set. This is gonna be the most interesting YouTube I've ever done, because okay, get out of there. I have 3 computers now, Barbara.
Oh my gosh.
Well, I did it because I had to do it, not because I really wanted to do it. I got my first MacBook, and I can't believe I've existed all these years without one, with as many videos as I do and all the production kind of things that I do, and that's they're the best at it. Oh, come on. Okay, there we go. And then my favorite has always been my Chromebook, which is a Google product, but they have the worst cameras ever, and they only started to address it with their newest version of the Google phone. So I've never been able to do good videos with just that. I try to use external cameras, and they don't like external cameras. Anyways, okay. Let's get started. Okay.
Everything okay at the doctor?
Unbelievable, Barbara. Let's before I hit the start button. I have less cancer in my body right now than I've had since we started charting it. It was unbelievable. And 3 months ago, in addition to doing the therapy, I get a hormone shot every 3 months, and I didn't think it was working very well. And my oncologist asked me would I stay on it for 3 more months, and he would give me an additional pill to take every day. You know anything about PSA and prostate? Okay.
Yeah, I know about PSA.
Okay, PSA is the number they use to measure how much prostate-specific antigen you have in your body.
Right.
When he first started seeing me, this oncologist, because I didn't go to him first, I went to a urologist first and removed my prostate. My PSA was a little north of 8, which is bad. When I saw him this week, my PSA was 0.96.
Wow.
So in 4 years, he has made the cancer almost disappear. So I mean, so that's great. And in addition to that, I started a new approach to life in terms of how I deal with food. I only consume food between 8:30 in the morning and 2:30 in the afternoon, and then liquids after that for 18 hours. And people have called it the intermittent dieting. That's what
Intermittent
fasting. When it was explained, my son said, "Dad, I think you ought to do this." He explained it, never used the words. I just started doing it. It was the right thing, Barbara. In 125 days, I've lost 30 pounds. And I don't have weight on my knees, so my knees feel better from the arthritis. I mean, it's an amazing turnaround. Yes, but better than good. Okay, here we go.
Okay, ready to go?
All right, hit the record button. And we are recording. Good morning. I don't know about we, but I have a special treat today because I am going to have a conversation with my most favoritist person of all times to have a discussion about business and what's going on in the world with Barbara Weltman, America's premier authority on small business taxes, and subsequently she writes a book every year. This is last year's edition, but we have a special treat for our viewing audience. We have the very first book going public. Barbara's holding it in her hand. Barbara, you want to hold it? There it is. This is the first time the world is seeing the 2022 edition. You've been doing this book for 26 years, 27 years?
Something like that. Yeah, more than 25. After 25, I stopped counting.
And you and I have been recording live streaming since 2008. We did our first. We have gone through every video technology there is, and I shared with you, but I'll share today. Today we're doing something I've never done before. We are recording on 3 cameras to Google, to YouTube, to Facebook. So we'll see what happens. Barbara, you and I are going to be the most famous people walking on the face of the earth after today. Okay. 2020, April 2020. You and I communicated at the end of the month. The Kauffman Foundation had just come out with their statement about what was going on in the world as the world was getting turned back on, and they came out with what they called the New American Business Plan. I got all excited with the New American Business Plan, and I wanted to call my best friends to talk about the New American Business Plan. And the first contact I made was with Barbara because we've gone through the ages together, but Barbara had the insight to see where things were going. And actually, as we were speaking, she said, "Well, David, I just had this book published and it's appropriate for the conversation." And I said, "Wow, that's who Barbara Weltman is. She's a number one authority." So Barbara's Startup Guide. I have seen a lot of startup guides over the years, and Barbara's is the absolute best. And here's why I say that. And it's not just to blow smoke, Barbara. It's simple, and what Barbara takes a very complex conversation and simplifies it so folks like myself can understand what's happening. So Barbara took the startup guide, startup concept, and created. And she didn't know when she was doing this, the power of what she was creating. She asked 250 questions in this book. And as I said to Barbara before we got started, if someone wants to start a business, they have to be able to answer at least 90% of the 250 questions you asked. And your comment was, and yes, and if they can't, they need help. And that's who Barbara is. You need help. Barbara writes the Bible. You need help in interpreting the Bible to bring it home, to bring it closer to the individual. Okay. Having said that, there's a new dynamic happening, Barbara. You and I have been talking about it, but let's explore it a little bit more and see what the impact is on business today. And that's with an hour ago, I Googled and found out that in September, 4.4 people quit their jobs. And you and I knew that was going to happen because as businesses needed to continue to operate, people were operating out of their homes. More efficiently, they were operating out of their homes. And then operating in their homes, a whole new dynamic happens. They say, well, geez, why do I need to go into the office every day? Why do I need to go to the store every day? I can do what I have to do from here at home. Then they're also saying, well, geez, maybe I should be doing some of this stuff that I'm sharing with you. Maybe I should be doing it for myself. So bottom line, new startups. And you made a statement earlier that is there a statistic or just we know a lot of new business?
There's statistics I can't remember, but it's true that new business applications have exploded, that more businesses are being created now than last year and previously. And I think that reflects a couple of things. I think people have recognized, as you point out, that yes, they can work very productively from home and they don't have to go into work, but also things were so precarious during the height of the pandemic where people didn't know, are they going to have a job? Are they not going to have a job? And so they want to be able to create something for themselves that they know that they will have, assuming they can make it successful. So this kind of independent spirit is dictating activities. And I know, for example, my daughter is an example. She started a business. Actually, she was poised to launch just as the shutdown was announced that week. And so she had to pivot. And initially, the business was supposed to be for B2B, but she pivoted to the consumer, and it took a while to build up and
different environment.
Shopify and do all that stuff, so that she basically launched. It took about a year to get. She launched about a year ago, and it's really been slow starting, but she's just starting to gain traction now, and hopefully she can make a go of it and make it a successful.
And the nature of the business is?
It's wellness boxes, not subscription, just buying. It's wellness boxes created with a lot of local businesses, all ethically sourced and that kind of thing. So it's helping promote not only her business, but all other local or small businesses around the country that are doing these wonderful, amazing things that people just don't know about. And what's so great about this is because all these things are made in the U.S., we don't have to worry about shipping, getting them through the port in Los Angeles. It's all here already. So hopefully this is going to be.
It's about timing, and timing is what makes us all go. I lost my train of thought. What I was going to ask you. No, I know what it was. You said her focus shifted from B2B to more B2C,
right?
And that was because of the conditions. That was because how people.
That was because businesses were shutting down, and on people and employee. It was supposed to be targeted to help to wellness for employees to help against burnout, but employees weren't going into the office and having that anymore. So that's why she still has that going, but the focus had to shift to consumers to have something to market.
How is she?
People were home.
How is she in addressing parenting? Because parenting has become a huge new issue as businesses move home.
Absolutely. Well, as a mother of a elementary school child, she's had to deal with that issue herself. And for me, it's a very interesting thing because I started my home business. I started working from home in 1983, and I had three young children.
You know what? You and I have never had this conversation. Continue.
Okay, so
yes.
I started my business. I started my law practice from home in 1983. And I was fortunate. I was able to build a professional office on the home. So I had a separate entrance and it was a nice setup for me. But I was always working from home and engaged with my children. They were, in elementary school and whatever. But I found that work-life balance, 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. And so for me, it's very interesting hearing all these parents talk about what's going on now when I kind of lived it so long ago. And back in those days, if you may recall, it wasn't really cool to work from home. You kind of had to hide. It wasn't thought of as professional, and you had to hide the fact that you were working from home. You didn't want to have children or dogs barking or any noise in the background. Whereas today, you could be on a Zoom meeting and the dogs walk through, the cats come up, and people say, "Oh, who cares? Who knows?"
Well, not only that, as you and I get customer service for concerns of ours, we're talking with agents who are in their homes, and we're hearing the background. And these are customer care agents, and
yes, absolutely.
And we're hearing what's going on in their homes. I see that all the time. I have to smile, Barbara. I have operated out of my home for 40 out of 50 years.
Right.
The 10 years that I didn't operate out of my home, I was affiliated with a Fortune 500 company who was #1 in the world of what they did, and I traveled. I put 1 million miles on away from home, and in those 9 years, it's a dynamic that I've always been very, very comfortable with, obviously, but it's a challenging one. And you and I have had this discussion before, that there is a very fine line in one's home. What is home and what is business? And how much of the office do we take home? Well, if the office is in the home, and so address that a little bit, and the challenges you've had over the years in doing it.
Well, part of the challenge was, of course, interruptions. That you don't want those interruptions, and I used to tell my kids, unless you're bleeding, if the door is closed, don't come in. Unless it's really.
Did you have a nurse? Did you have a nurse outside?
I don't need to hear a joke or right in the middle of what I'm doing.
I love you dearly, but keep the jokes to when.
We'll talk later. But if you need immediate emergency care, I'm here. That kind of thing. And what's so interesting is both of my daughters run businesses from home now. And I just find that kind of heartwarming that they sort of saw it could work and made it work for them.
And I can say the same about my two sons, in what they are doing. One was very fortunate. Well, first his boss, he reports to the owner of the company. First, his boss said, you can go to Utah because your wife is going to become a professor there, and so I'll let you operate out of your home 2 weeks out of the month, but 2 weeks out of the month I want you to come back to Columbus or travel wherever you need to do the job. He said, fine. Well, then the pandemic kind of closed things in a little bit more, but his company understands the power of being able to operate in your home, in your own environment, create your own hours. As long as you get the job done, as long as you meet the objective, really, does it make that much difference? You're going to be.
Well, there have been studies that people who work from home are more productive. And just think about the for people who are working from home who don't have to commute. You don't have the stress and the cost and the time wasted on travel. I mean, I used to say my commute was down the stairs and to the left, and and that was my commute. And I think that adds so much to your productivity, but also just to your sense of well-being, and you can just relax and focus on what you need to do and get it done. Obviously for companies there are issues. There are a lot of issues with having a remote workforce. But I think in terms of you being an entrepreneur and starting a business from home, that's if you can do it, and you have to make sure that zoning or HOA rules don't prevent you from doing it. But if you can do it, it's great.
You had to sneak in the local regulations or local restrict. Well, it's probably something very much disregarded and probably not enforced unless you're making a lot of noise and disturbing people.
Well, that's it, and it depends on the business that you're running. If you're in an HOA and you're having tons of customers or patients or clients come into your home, that could be an issue. But if you're like me sitting here just typing away, it's no problem.
That's it started another discussion that you and I have had, and it's going to be more and more prevalent now. And I've been using the expression solopreneur, which is an individual. Right. And for all intents and purposes, you've been a solopreneur all these years, haven't you? I mean, it's basically been you, and when you and I need something that you and I can't do, we job it out to somebody who can do it.
Well, that's it. I think that working as a solopreneur, as long as you have your team, the people that you can turn to. I mean, I rely very heavily on my IT people. I have an outside bookkeeper. I have a virtual assistant. All of these people that are essential to me operating. And
is your virtual assistant live or artificial intelligence?
No, she's live.
And no, I'm joking with that.
One time zone away, but we've made it work, and we're together more than 10 years, and just essential.
And I haven't met her. I've never met her. You've made reference to her, but she does a wonderful job because I've watched the changes in you and your marketing.
She's made everything possible. Yes.
And then that creates another discussion that you and I have had many, many times about collaboration. How important it is for particularly if you're small, to collaborate with other people who are facing many of the same challenges. And we work together, and you're good at this, well, you do that, and I'm good at this, I'll do that, and together we'll collaborate.
Well, it's like I mentioned about my daughter's business. Using these products, they're sort of co-marketing, if you will, because they're each promoting each other, and that really is a very valuable way to go. So it's not that you're just touting yourself, you're touting other businesses, and they in turn are promoting you because you're selling their product, and so it really is a
well. And the portal concept of doing business, which I've been a strong proponent of the portal concept, where as a facilitator, the facilitator pulls together the resources and then makes those resources available in a portal fashion. That model has always worked for me, and sounds like it's working extremely well for your daughter.
Well, it is, and you have to bless technology for
we couldn't make it happen without it.
Couldn't make it happen without you need today, for example, if you're selling across the country, you have to make sure that you're complying with sales tax requirements all over the place if you're subject to the sales tax there, and so these packages like Shopify will identify all of this for you, and they don't do the tax filings and such, but everything's in place so that you can make sure that you can stay out of trouble in the different jurisdictions.
And that's got to be a nightmare for the IRS with all these they have to coordinate it all and make
it's not really that's really a state level issue. Sales tax is not an IRS.
Well, but I meant, you're right, but there's issues at state issues at the federal level. But
certainly, at the federal level, there's tons of issues and tons of law changes, and you gotta and that's another thing. Working with your CPA, most small business owners do use paid professionals to prepare and file their tax returns. Not all, but most also use their CPAs or other tax pros for guidance throughout the year, or they should be, because because things happen, new laws happen throughout the year, and new guidance and new opportunities that you don't want to be late in the game. You want to make sure that you take advantage, and it's hard to know about by yourself.
Well, let's address that one personally. In one of our discussions, probably about 6 years ago, you had said something, and it ignited a spark in me, and I went out and I bought some software. And back then, I probably paid $35 for it. It tax preparation software, and you encouraged me to do it. And I went through the whole thing, and I learned more about my business that I had taken for granted, or I'd just given over to an accountant to take care of, and I didn't understand the dynamic of how these pieces necessarily fit together. But you taking me through that exercise absolutely showed me that. So that year, when I filled out a return, and my return is not that difficult to fill out. I'm a solopreneur, and there's not that much going on. I filled it out and I took it to my accountant, and all he did was audited what I did, which was ultimately what I pay him for. And he didn't charge me what he usually charges me to do a tax preparation, because I had done the work. He was auditing what I did, and it was a win-win all over the place.
Yeah. And well, I think the fact that you learned more about what your business was about, and I think that's the problem with so many business owners. They're so busy selling and doing what the core of their business is. They don't step back and see what the results are. They don't know. You can ask businesses, they don't know what their profit margin is. They don't know if they're making money or losing money. They're just selling. And I think that having good accounting software or cloud solutions such as QuickBooks, you can easily generate reports that you can see. I mean, you don't have to be a numbers person these days. You can do this on your phone. I mean, it's just kind of amazing that you can keep track of things and know where you're at any moment. It's so helpful for cash flow issues. I mean, businesses, and that's a biggie. That's the cash flow is what will do you in. If you don't have the money to pay your bills when they come due, that's what's going to put you under more than anything else. And businesses may think, oh, well, I'm selling. But if you're not getting paid and the money's not coming in on time, you may not have the wherewithal to pay your bills when they come due. And I can't emphasize enough how important it is to keep track of these things. It's the least favorite part of running a business. I mean, it's not the fun part, keeping your books and records and doing your taxes, but it's such a vital part in terms of knowing where you stand.
That's the key words, knowing where you stand, which is a beautiful segue into a discussion of small business taxes. I'm holding 2021. You are holding 2022. And because I'm going to ask you a question that only you know the answer to. What are the three major changes in the tax laws that you have seen from 2021 from year 2021 to year going into 2022? And I'm talking about small businesses now more so than any business. What do you see? Where should people really be focusing on and thinking in terms of what makes their business go?
Well, one of the issues is that things are not settled. That the tax law has been changed so much in recent years. We had 5 major tax bills within 15 months, and now the House just this morning passed the Build Back Better Act. I think now goes to the Senate, which will make more changes, and it will impact small businesses. There's one of the changes, for example, within that measure that would impact the net investment income tax, which is a 3.8% additional Medicare tax, and it's going to broaden it to apply to more pass-through owners, which are small business owners. So that's what we have. So the bottom line is the biggest change is what we've been living with in the past several years, which is uncertainty, new rules, some rules retroactive, some rules in the future. One of the rules that was into the infrastructure measure, for example, which was signed into law on November 15th, the Infrastructure Investment in Jobs some creation and build whatever, the infrastructure measure changes the rule for 1099K reporting. So 1099K is an information return that's generated by banks, PayPal, and other companies that process credit cards, debit cards, electronic payments. And up until now, the information return was only if you had 20,000 transactions and more than $20,000 in revenue for the year. Starting with transactions after 2021, so it doesn't impact your 2021 return, but starting next year, it's going to apply $600 in transactions, regardless, $600 in revenue, regardless of the number of transactions. So that it's going to be the same reporting threshold that we're familiar with reporting for payments to independent contractors. That's $600 or more per year. The same 1099 NEC we're used to for independent contractors now is going to apply to the 1099K. So the point is not, I don't want to get bogged down in the details. The point is we have to continually stay up on what's new, and things are not static. In my book, for example, I have an online supplement that will come out in February to update everything that's happened since October 1st. The infrastructure measure, if this reconciliation act passes with the Build Back Better, lots of changes there, some for 2021 and some going forward. So we just have to keep watching.
So you just made a statement, and I've never thought about it till just now, but you never stop writing this book. It's ongoing every single day of every single year, right?
That's it. Well, that's it. There isn't the book is available in a Kindle edition, but it's not updated continually. It has the same one supplement per edition.
I never realized it. I never realized it was a Kindle edition on this book.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. I'm not going to worry anymore, except when you send me an autographed copy for the current edition. I'm going to use Kindle. But let's share, if we may. Let's share how I like to read your book, because I get so much value out of doing it the way that not necessarily the next guy is going to get it or girl is going to get it, but
it's certainly not a novel that you start on page 1.
Exactly. So where do I start when I read your books? I go to the index, because those are the key words of all the topics of discussion that you are having, and I try to find the key word that I'm looking for that will take me to the place in the book where I'm going to find the. Now, not only am I going to find an answer or a reference to, I'm going to find a practical application in many cases, because that's what I love what you do. You take the concept and you break it down into looking ahead and noting and examples. So you really bring it home on virtually every concept there is going. And that's the way that I do it. That's the way we get the information that we're looking for, quickly. Because this is a 700-page book, which you told me, because they made it a larger book, is now a 600-page book.
More information on fewer pages because the pages are larger.
Isn't that interesting how that works? Well, so today I actually, before our discussion today, because I don't think I've ever done it with the 2021 book, I looked for the word solopreneur, and you don't use it as a key word as such. However, you do have sole proprietor. Now, is there a relationship between the?
Yes, they're the same thing. The sole proprietor is the tax term. That's what the IRS uses as the term for someone who does not have any other type of entity and works as a Schedule C filer, and that's a sole proprietor.
Well,
and it really could be an independent contractor. It could be a freelancer. It could be a gig worker. It could be, as you point out, a solopreneur. So any of those.
that was kind of a rhetorical question because I knew the answer
Well, actually, if you think of solopreneur, it could also stand for somebody who's incorporated, but they're working
Sure,
alone.
sure. Well, your recommendation to me has always been LLC. Right away you might go to something different in the future, but to protect yourself and your business right away, go to the LLC, and then see how things fall out.
Or be an S corporation.
Whatever, and you certainly, I mean, that is a major theme of yours. Should you change the way that you report your income? That's
chapter one. That's chapter
Did you hear that, folks? It's chapter. Is that the new book or the old book? The same book. The
chapter
same book.
One, your entity choice and what that means in terms of how you report on your tax return and some practical information.
Okay, in 2021, part one indeed was the organization, and you broke it down into the first chapter on business organization, second discussion on tax year and accounting methods, third conversation recording for business income and deductions. And that probably hasn't changed too much in 2022.
No, it hasn't. Actually, it's pretty much the same. It could have changed because they were going to hike the corporate tax rate from a flat 21% up to 26.5%, first up to 28, then 26.5%, and that could kind of change the conversation about whether you wanted to be a regular C corporation, but that's going to drop out of the Build Back Better. So, so for now, I think we're pretty much set. But I think one thing I do want to point out about your choice of entity is that you need to explore what's happening on your state level, because that's not yes, it impacts your federal taxes, but it can also impact your state tax and also what it costs to organize at the state level so I think you have to sort of the book doesn't can't go into all jurisdictions. But I think that's something.
Well, and we have seen all of us have seen with the pandemic how things start at the federal level in terms of like funds and go down to the state levels, and then the states determine. To that end, I think I've discovered a horrible discrepancy in the way Ohio distributed their pandemic unemployment income. Money they got from the federal government and how they distributed. With some discussions I've been having with some folks, I think there's been some. But anyways, back to your point, it's states are going to be making more and more decisions about things, and I believe that's the way it should be, because doing it at the state level brings it closer to home to you and I, and then you say, well, what about municipal jurisdictions?
That's another thing. But I think for just to circle back to tax issues, not all states have the same rules, follow the federal rules. They may have their own rules. So, for example, with respect to on the federal level, where we have first year expensing and bonus depreciation, that enables you to write off in full the cost of equipment and machinery that you buy and place in service in the year. States may not follow those rules and may still require you to use regular depreciation to spread out the write-offs, and you can't take it all in the first year. So you may have something on the federal level versus something on the state level. Same with health savings accounts. You can deduct your contributions on the federal return, but I know of one state that you can't deduct, maybe more than one state where you can't deduct your contributions. So.
And boy, you and I have had our discussion about HSAs over the years. Um, I think probably once again it was because of you and a conversation you and I are having. I ran out to get an HSA, and an HSA is a really, in my mind, is a really, really smart investment for the individual as well as a potential business. I mean, there's a dynamic that exists with both of them.
Sure.
Okay, I guess the next segue that you've created, and something that we always talk about in all of our conversations, is the complexity of where we are with healthcare and what's going to be happening with healthcare as we move forward. Because goodness, the healthcare system it's never been hit harder than it was in 2020, or 2020 2019 to 2020 and into 2021. I have noticed a few changes in Medicare because I'm a Medicare recipient. But where are we going with healthcare? What's happening with healthcare?
Well, with healthcare, first of all, this is the critical time to be thinking about it, talking about it, and doing something about it, because everything has to be in place by January 1. So, and there are election periods, as you mentioned, for the individual market, be it Medicare or the government exchanges, but businesses are putting in place whether they're going to do group plans or decide whether they're going to. There are many options now for small businesses to enable employees to have coverage on a tax advantage basis. For example, there's one option is individual coverage health reimbursement arrangements, where a company can decide, we're going to pay X dollars and give it to you, and you go and get your individual coverage. We're not going to have a group plan. We're not going to have insurance. We're not going to tell you what to do, but you get the coverage that's best for you, and we're going to reimburse you this amount for the year. That's one option. Another is a qualified small employer health reimbursement arrangement, a QSARA. In that arrangement, the government sets the annual reimbursement limit, whether you have a family plan or an individual coverage. And again, it works the same way in that the employee goes out and gets individual coverage, shows the employer, here's my coverage, and you get reimbursed up to the whatever limit, and the limit can't exceed what the annual cap is set by the government. So those are two ways that companies don't have to have a group plan, but they can still enable their employees to have coverage. A company can also create what's called a premium-only cafeteria plan, where employees can put some of their wages into this plan and pay their premiums on a pre-tax basis. In other words, the amount of the money that they put into the plan that's used for the premiums is not considered taxable compensation to them. So I'm just going to give general numbers. Somebody makes $40,000 and they put $5,000 into this cafeteria plan, they're only going to be taxed on $35,000 for the year, and yet they're paying for their health coverage. So that's another option. And another option is the health savings account arrangement, where you are covered by what's called a high deductible health plan, meaning that you have to satisfy an insurance deductible before the insurance kicks in. And small businesses can set this up where they can have a group plan that's a high deductible plan, and the cost is pretty modest compared to the traditional group health plan. So, and then they can either make the contributions to the health savings account, or employees can do it. If the employer does it, they deduct it. If the employee does it, the employee deducts it. So, there are a lot of tax advantage ways to ensure that people have health coverage. And nobody should really be without. And employers certainly want their staff to stay healthy and have good coverage.
I'm going to step away with my from our conversation with my next question because I'm now very, very curious. In your lifetime, in your career, and things that you have done, have you had economic training in accounting, or you just learned it by doing and all the things that, well, writing your books and the research and the practical experiences you have with your books? Is that pretty much been your story?
Well, it's a little broader than that. I mean, I did take tax accounting in law school. I did
Oh,
take a course in tax
well,
accounting.
there you go.
So I mean, I know double entry bookkeeping. I know some of the old concepts.
You knew in law school. You knew in law school where you wanted to take that law degree.
Yeah. But I also had experience. I worked a little in my aunt and uncle had an art supply store, and I worked there, and so I knew the register. I knew the nightly deposits. I when they went away, I had to figure payroll and give it out. So I had some rather practical experience in a small business, and of course, my father owned a small business. So I at the dinner table, I learned an awful lot about small business.
What was your father's small business?
He was a tool and die company. So they made parts um, for they did some government contracting, and they did for Western Electric back then. And
I personally, I've never taken a marketing course in my life. I am a product of the streets. My customers have been my very best teachers, which is a good way to approach it, anyways, because then you find out what is really needed, and you can focus on what the needs are and your abilities to solve the problems of, in that way. But uh, I kind of laugh because my son and my oldest son, his second year in college, he had gone to college and wanted to study graphic design, but never signed up and never declared that. So he just started taking general courses in college, and he called me up midway through his freshman year. He said, "Dad, would you mind if I changed my major to marketing?" And I laughed and I said, "Why would I mind? Number one, that's all that I know. Um, I've been doing it. Number two, how much fun would it be if someday you and I went into business together in a marketing kind of sense? And number three, go ahead and do what you want to do what you need to do, make it happen. But every test that you take, I want to share that test with you so I can learn the book understanding." And every test that he took, we discussed it afterwards. And how much fun was that to have your son lecture you on marketing and and he's the one that's made me that's planted the seed for me to change and look at things differently. And he was the one that actually made me think about dreaming with entrepreneurs and small biz David. It was his discussions and strategies and how much fun is that when our children teach us something, and it's all worthwhile. It is all worthwhile when that happens. Barbara, I want to thank you again for your time. It's always a conversation I look forward to because we've been doing it so long, and it's a lot of fun. And I want to thank you for your time. And now we're gonna market this thing, our discussion. Let me segue into that because it'll kind of end our discussion. One of the things that I've been doing in 2022, I create digital libraries, as you well know. You are probably the subject of at least 20 videos or more in my digital libraries. That's what I do. And uh, the most recent digital library is one where we use keywords, and I buy .expert. So whatever. So I offered you and David Amerlin the very first pages, books in our digital library. Um, and I know that David, every week, There's three videos on those pages. There's a discussion that you and I have had. There's something strictly about you and what you want to do and how you want to share information. And by the way, we need to get. I need more links from. Tell your marketing assistant to send me more links so we can update your videos. And then the third video on those pages, on those web landing pages, are my perceptions, bringing it home, reality. How do I relate to it? Why have I chosen this individual to be the dot expert that I've chosen? So we're having a lot of fun with that, and I want to thank you for being one of the first 3 web landing pages in that digital library. It's called Your Small Business Expert .info. Your Small Business Expert .info, and inside of that is all of our dot experts. So that's going to be big, Barbara, and I'm going to be producing a lot of those pages, and the next guys are going to pay for them.
All right.
I'm going to monetize something. Finally, after all these years, I've learned how to monetize, Barbara.
Good for you.
And but the downside to that is now I have to account for all this money and where's it going and why, and but you know what, we're gonna have fun with it. We'll definitely have fun.
I wish you success. I think it sounds great.
Well, you're Barbara. One of the pledges that I took in the originally took it 11 or 12 years ago in the Kaufman Foundation lobby.
I remember.
And one of the things that I am obligated to do is to take my years of experience and give it back, especially giving thanks to those folks who helped me in my success. And you are at the top, the very top of that list. And thank you for your time in all these years. And I figured out why you finally moved to Florida. I finally figured that. How long ago did you move to Florida?
It's 9 years.
I knew it was more than 8 years. You know why I knew that?
Yeah.
Because my oldest granddaughter, she wasn't born in New York City, but she lives in New York City, and she's 8. And so I've been going to New York City frequently, several times a year for the last 8 years. And if I go to New York, I'd have to have lunch with Barbara. But now she's in Florida, and I guess I just have to come to Florida and we'll have lunch in Florida, right?
There you go.
Well, thank you once again, and I look forward to our next discussion. And as I'd like to end discussions, say the next time may very well be the best time. Thank you. And how do we? Remember I had, oh, here we go. This was crazy. Let's see. We might be on here all day long, Barbara, because I don't see how to shut it down.
I can close out mine.
No, I can close it. I just don't want to lose it when doing it. Let me do this. Well, let me take one last look, and then we can shut it down. Well, you can go on with your day.
Okay.
just do it off camera.
Adios.
Oh, that's right. You can shut. Yeah, goodbye. Yeah, you can shut it down.